Good evening. Was that working? That is working. Good evening. Welcome to my regular live stream of Node-RED core development work. This is my hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. Working actually on the core of Node-RED or bits and pieces around the edges of Node-RED. Do say hi in the chat if you're watching on Twitch. Do say hi in the comments if you're watching the replay on YouTube. Good to see you, Nathaniel. Welcome. Hope you've had a good week. I was off last week. Had it's school holidays last week, so took a few days off. And it's been lovely weather here in the UK, which makes a nice change. As you can see, the sun shining in the window behind me. But what are we up to tonight? So tonight, I thought I would give you a quick demo of Node-RED lint, just to show you where that's come to. It's I think it's now pretty much feature complete in terms of the core. It's just a question now of writing lots more rules for it, but that's stuff we can do later, as and when. And this week we will assertively get Node-RED 2.0 beta out. There's just, as ever, a few more bits and pieces just to tidy up, but I didn't want to get into that. A lot of what's left for 2.0 is just dotting I's and crossing T's, if you like, of tidying up a few bits and getting some documentation written and that type of stuff. Not really interesting stuff on a live stream. I wanted to have a little play with an idea I'd come up with yesterday. That will be quite cool to do with Node-RED admin, the command line tool we have that's actually built into Node-RED. Useful for generating, like creating a properly hashed password for your settings file. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I will show you exactly what I mean in a minute. But first, let's just do a quick show and tell of the flow linter and what it's currently looking like. Let me see, main screen. Here we are. So I can't remember how much you would have seen if you were here a couple of weeks ago, but when you're using the linter, if I zoom everything up a bit, a bit easier to read. So what have we got? When you have the linter, you get the linter sidebar, which has this little suitcase with a cross on it, medical suitcase, seemed apt for the linter. And it shows you a summary of how many errors and warnings. Currently, all of our rules are there's a bit more thinking need to be done around error levels and that type of stuff, but it shows you them, and you can see down here there's also this widget which gives you that same summary. So if as you're busy working over here, you can click on that and it jumps you to the linter sidebar. And here you can see I've got a couple of warnings. Function node has no name, so you can click on that and it takes you right there, which is nice. Overlapping nodes is a new rule I wrote, which warns you if you've got some nodes overlapping. Now, what's a bit tricksy about that rule is we don't store the widths and heights of nodes in the flow file because they aren't used in the runtime at all. There's no reason to have that information in the runtime. The widths and heights are calculated in the editor when displaying the node. So the overlapping nodes rule, when the linter is running in the editor, it sets a special flag when it says give me the flow JSON, and it actually includes all the widths and heights of nodes in the JSON that gets linted. When you run it outside, like on the command line against a bare flow file, at the moment it uses sort of a default width and height. Keeping, it knows if you've got like a hidden hidden label. It knows those are smaller. But yeah, so there's a slight, because it doesn't know the proper size of the node, it won't necessarily get exactly the same results, but it's good enough, I think. But another rule I added, if I press shift when I drag, so I'm not snapping to the grid, and I drop this node down, node not aligned to grid. And in fact, I've left some debug in the message there. I should get that removed, but that's nice. In the toolbar, you can click that button to rerun the linter. The settings panel, there is now an option whether to automatically lint and how much delay after a change before it should run the linter. Obviously, the longer the delay, it's basically if there's any performance issues, you can either disable the automatic lint or put a decent delay. So if you're making lots of changes, maybe run the linter once every 5 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever you want. The default is 1 second, and that seems sort of responsive enough. Anyway, we'll see. But then here you've got all the different rules and all the configuration options for them. And this is nice. This settings panel is automatically generated by whatever rules you have loaded, because all the rules provide metadata about what settings they require and that type of stuff. Yeah, so that's all nice. And then this is a bit I really quite like. Let's go. Okay, let's add a new function node, and straight away it complains about two things. It's not aligned to the grid, so let's just get that aligned to the grid, and it has no name. Well, maybe I'm happy that it hasn't got a name. What you can now do is say ignore for node, or ignore that rule for the whole flow, so everything on that tab. So if I do ignore for node, it disappears. And you'll notice this node is now changed. And that is because what it does is it adds a comment to the node's description in a special format that basically turns off that rule for that node. You can see it's... There we are. Oh, that's interesting. I Control Z added, which undid that change. So let's... No, okay. But let's say I've got two nodes, so you can see they're both there. They have no name. I can say ignore for flow. And there's a bug there that if you're hovering the node when the entry gets removed from this list, the node gets stuck with the highlighted border. Anyway, and for just the same way, if you say ignore for the node, it adds a comment to the node's description. If you say ignore for the flow, it does the same for the whole flow. So this effectively turns off that rule for all the nodes in this flow. And so if I just undo that, yeah. So it's now complaining those. And same deal, if I put that in a group, then this node I can say ignore for group. And again, if I go in, you can see on the group, it's added that comment. So now anything inside this group will ignore that rule. So yeah, it's quite nice. Quite nice to use now. Yeah, certainly useful. So now the real art will be getting the linting rules written to support all the different scenarios that the community have come up with. So there was I'm sure many of you would have seen, let me just pull it up. There was, oh no, don't show you my email. That's not good. I want this tab. This is what having just shown you my inbox. Quick scan down. What did I just show to the internet? Nothing of concern. Good. Yeah, so we posted the forum a little while ago. Lots of really good ideas in here, some more practical than others. But yeah, lots of good stuff to explore in terms of useful rules that we want to add. I mean, I definitely see some in here that I wouldn't want to be in my sort of default set of rules, like Hypnos suggested have one that all nodes must be inside a group, which I can see why someone might want that rule, but I wouldn't suggest that should be a default best practice. But it'll be easy enough to create the rule, have it default disabled, so people can opt into it if they want it. So let me just move that window back. Yeah, so there's a bit of work to do around. So I was working on the not aligned to grid issue rule earlier today, and it so happened, I think, like nothing was aligned to the grid. Yeah, when you're starting to get like 30 warnings, then it was getting a bit of a handful. So I think certainly there's something to be done around better filtering, or some sort of filtering to say, only show me warnings for the current tab, like the debug has its filter options. It would be hard. Would it be hard? Actually, no, it would be possible. Yes, it would be possible to only show, if you've selected a node, basically highlight or do something just to focus in on linting errors related to that node. The other thing I want to do, but we don't have an API for yet, and you have to remember the linter is a plugin, so I'm trying not to hard code any behaviors into the core of Node-RED, trying to use all the standard APIs the editor provides. I would like to be able to have the linter, if there's a linting failure for a node, to have some decoration on the node to show that there is a linting error. But to do that, we'll need some sort of API in place that we don't have for the linter to tell the editor, please give this node this annotation. Possibly similar to the way the Flow debugger does it. The Flow debugger, the way it lets you add in breakpoints, that we've had to introduce some custom APIs into the editor to support that sort of behavior. I'm not yet fully convinced it's the right API. It's something I want to revisit during the beta, and we may completely rewrite how how these annotations get added to the node. But I do wonder if there's a cleaner API to use to add these annotations to the node. But there we are. That's the linter. So a pretty solid framework is in place. Of course, there's going to be bells and whistles and usability enhancements to go along the way. But this is a great thing doing it as a plugin. It's not tied to a Node-RED release, as long as it doesn't depend on any core APIs. So at this point, this is why I'm working on it rather than getting 2.0 released, is I want to make sure any new APIs we need in the editor to support what it needs to do, we get into 2.0. So it all works nicely together. Anyway, none of that was what I really want to spend much time on tonight, but there we are. I've spent a quarter of an hour on it. What I wanted to do was, there's this this idea sort of came to me, a couple of days ago. sort of reflecting on the getting started experience of Node-RED. And one of the challenges is for new users, how do we get them to secure Node-RED to begin with? Try and be a bit more secure by default, or make it easier to be secure. Because one of the problems we have is to customize your Node-RED install, you need to edit your settings file. But if you've just installed Node-RED, you have no settings file until you've run it. So there is a chicken and egg problem of you've got to run Node-RED in a completely default configuration, then stop it just to get a settings file that you can then edit, which isn't ideal by any stretch. Plus, there are certain settings we would love users to take a moment and actually configure for themselves, like credential secret, so the encryption of their credentials file, and username and password type stuff, that type of thing. Whether they want to use the projects feature and so on. So entirely inspired by npm init and in fact ESLint init. So two tools that rely on configuration files, and they actually provide a command line option to help you generate some sort of configuration. So it's intended to be an interactive prompt of ask the user a question, get a response, and then generate a settings file for them. So yeah, I think done right, this will be really useful for new users. It'll be useful for any users, but it will be less valuable to existing installs because they will already have a settings file. And I think the point of this is to help get that initial settings file set up. The initial settings file and user directory set up. So that's kind of the goal. So what are we going to do? We're going to delve into Node-RED admin. So Node-RED admin is the command line tool we have, Node-RED admin. As of, I can't remember what release, was it 1.0, 1.1? We actually bundle Node-RED admin in with Node-RED. So whilst you can run node-red-admin as a command if you have it installed, you can also access it as this is when my brain goes blank. Well, I have to, because this is the Node-RED source tree, I don't have the Node-RED command installed, but I can run the equivalent, which is Node-RED. No. Right. Yeah, let's stop that. So so we bundle Node-RED admin, and in fact, if you run Node-RED, which is effectively that, and then pass admin as the first command, as the first argument, it runs Node-RED admin for you. So don't do that. So that's nice, and that means we can build it into Node-RED admin as a standalone tool, or we can and by doing that, whoever installs Node-RED will have full access to run it as well. So we're in the Node-RED admin source tree. So that's where we're going to focus our development work right now. I spent a couple of minutes just now reminding myself of the structure. So yeah, Node-RED admin, the main entry point to this is, so you've got Node-RED admin, which is the script that gets run. And literally all that does is just requires libindex.js, grabs all the command line arguments except the first two, which would be node and the name of the script being run. So gets you all of the real command line arguments and passes those to libindex. So libindex exports this one function, then it parses that array of arguments, and depending on what arguments the user has set, it passes it to the different commands. So each command is implemented as its own thing. I'm just slightly intrigued. What's this? Leave projects undocumented for now. Needs more work to be useful. Well, quite. You know, I have absolutely no memory of writing that. What does that do? Node-RED projects failed to... Oh. Yeah, it helps if Node-RED's running in the background if you want to... Dun, dun, dun. Sorry, just answering a question on Slack. Anyway, yeah, so what does node admit projects? Oh, okay. So I think all that does, it just lists what projects are available. You know what, I should probably spend some time in fixing that or improving that, but that's not what we're here for tonight. What we're doing is Node-RED init. So let's use projects.js as it's so minimal, and we're just going to clone that file and call it init.js. And then add it in here. They're not in alphabetical order, which, oh, they want to be, don't they? But that's for another day. So we require it into the commands array. Then, and so what this will do is, if it's recognized command, it will invoke it and it will expect that to return a promise. Yeah. Actually, no, it doesn't have to return a promise, but there's no harm in doing so. In fact, again, reflecting how old a lot of the Node-RED admin code is, let's just make an async function so it all just works. The alias for this is init, and we'll say initialize a Node-RED settings file, something like that. So for now we'll just say console.log hi, because we're friendly like that. So let's just make sure this is now working. If I run Node-RED admin init and it says hi, we're on our way. Okay. So there's a question of, I'm not going to hack a lot into this tonight, but I want to get the sort of the basic framework in place. I did a bit of digging around in terms of NPM modules that are good for doing question and answer with a user, and very quickly came to this inquirer module. So let me get that installed. Hey, not enough tech. So what we're doing tonight, we are adding a new option to Node-RED admin that will allow Node-RED admin init that will walk you through generating a settings file so you don't have to run Node-RED to generate a settings file, and it will allow us to ask some questions of the user to set up a good default settings file for them. Okay, so that was the Inquirer module I've just installed. So as I go, I'm just going to update a bit of the syntax we're using in here. Inquirer, is that how you spell it? Yeah. So let's go look at the Inquirer. Yeah, so this is going to be to help you generate your... So for a new user who hasn't run Node-RED yet, they don't have a settings file. If they run Node-RED admin init, we'll ask them some questions like security options, credential secret options, features they may not want to enable. And then out to the back of that, we'll generate the settings file for them for when they run Node-RED. So that's good. Right, this is what we want. Do we just want prompt? Yeah. Okay, and then we want, this is why we make an async function, because we will await the response, and then let's just console log response. Okay, let's see what that gets us. So, what is your name? Nick. What is your username? No. Well, that's all very simple. We like that. So I'm just sort of scanning through different ways to run Inquirer. You can use the specific built-in prompt. So if you want to do a confirm, bypassing options. Okay. How can I customize prompts? Below in the guide, you can customize custom prompts. I just want to see some quick demo examples of. Oh, look, there's all sorts of options, but oh, here you go, built-in prompts. Oh, that's cool. So lots of options. Autocomplete prompt, that looks fun. But I think in general, we're going to be asking yes/no questions and possibly list select, maybe? No, not list. We would probably going to have oh, I've lost the list now. Select prompt, I imagine. Yeah, pick from a list. All right. Well, let's see what that looks like. That's a new select. Could the first question be, do you have an existing settings.js file? I think we're going to have to be quite careful on the design of this, that at the moment, yes, I haven't spent time thinking about what the questions to ask are. Okay, so there's lots it could do. The main thing is to help the completely novice, first time ever they've run a Node-RED command type user. That's our sort of key demographic for this, because we need to make it easier for brand new users who don't know about the settings file, who don't know about admin auth. yeah, we just need to make life easier for them. So certainly we do need to handle what if the user has already got a settings file. What should we do? And there are just so many scenarios that we do need to consider, but one step at a time. I think even just getting to a point where we're able to ask some questions is quite cool. So I'm just going to copy this prompt select. Because I think if I do type select, that will do the right thing. So init, what's your name, blah, blah, and then pick a flavor. Cool. See, this is really nice. This is should be pretty sweet. Now, what happens if they control C it? So you get a cross and what's our exit code? Yeah, you get an exit code of 1. That's probably all right. Okay. So what we need to do is just think, what's a basic list of the questions to ask? Now, from the design note or the design proposal I threw together, we want to pick a location of the Node-RED user directory, with the default being the usual location. We need to ask for a credential secret value, ask to set up user security, whether to enable the projects feature, and anything else that makes sense. So that's kind of what we've that's the goal. Yeah, not enough tech. I mean, absolutely setting up admin auth, prompting the user for username and password, and just doing all that work for them is 100% reason for doing this work. So, okay, let's make some notes about what we need to do. So we need to identify user directory, check if settings file already exists, get credential secret value, ask if they ask to set up admin auth, and under that prompt for username, prompt for password. Yeah, there's things like context stores, that type of thing. And again, this isn't necessarily intended for the users who know what they're doing, or the users that have a template settings file they just want to dump into place. So I want to be careful that we don't overload it with questions. So really, right now, I think focusing it on what are the most common things to change for brand new users. There's 4 things, and I think that's for a minimal viable set of actions. I think that will be a good set of things for us to do. So let's set about doing some of this. Let's think. What I'm going to do is create a new folder called resources. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to rename that. I'm going to rename that init. I'm going to move the init command into there, and I'm just going to change my import. Oh no, if I rename this file, index. That should all still work. Nope, didn't work. Oh, because that's now moved to be another level up. Yep, so that's worked. Cool. I just want to keep this commands directory sort of clean. I don't want to litter it with multiple files for a single command. So I've created a folder for the init command and index.js being the main entry point. Then under that, we'll create a resources. So I just realized I've got a few too many windows. Yeah, resources, and into that we will create a settings.js. Yeah, I think settings.js will do us for now. And what we'll go and do is go and grab our default settings.js. Now, one of the downsides of this is is obviously the version of the settings.js it generates is going to be the version it provides, not necessarily the latest matching version of Node-RED. But I think that will be one of the tasks upon us, is whenever we update settings.js in the core project to make sure Node-RED admin is kept up to date. So yeah. Oh, flow file name. You know what? So this is one of the changes we've done in 2.0 is we now hard code in a flow file name rather than relying on the host name by default. I think it would be entirely reasonable if I can find the right file where we were. Where were we? Yeah, I've got too many open. Right. Index.js. Identify user directory, check if settings file already exists. And this is a problem with doing a numbered list, is your numbers are already broken because you insert something. Get flow file name. Good. Yeah. So just trying to decide what's the best way of doing this. I mean, this file, it's in need of a big reorganization and improvement in structure. But for now, yeah, so about environment variables, I mean, we pick up port because it is just such universal standard for web apps to use port, so that's convenient to have built in. Whether other settings should be able to... Of course, you can edit your settings file to pick up whatever environment variable you want, as Ben says, but yeah, the question of whether we ought to have that pre-baked in to the settings file. Now there are some things like enabling projects that are actually baked into the core of Node-RED itself, not in your settings file. So you can actually use some environment variables to override your settings file. But anyway, that's for another moment. What we're going to do here is I'm just trying to... The idea, what I'm getting at is this is going to be the template. So we're going to ask a bunch of questions. Then what we need to do is, or what we can do is const fs require fs now. Excuse me while I go check the... I can never remember how to load the promises version. Fs promises. if we do that, let me just double check. I'm pretty sure if we go back to 12, which is the version we support, promise example, and it's different. It's not that, it's that. So is that something they've changed? If we go to version 14 of Node, promise example, yeah, it's changed to fs/promises. Right. Let's look what version. So I'm on node 14 here. So let's just try fs require fs dot promises. Fs. Okay, it works. I think because we support node 12, we need to lowest common denominator and all that. Load template settings. We're here, we want the path module. So for this, we will template file is path.join our current directory, resources, settings.js, return fs.read file, template file, utf8. Okay, so we're going to ask all those questions. Settings template will load up. Seeing already I've called it template settings and settings template, so let's pick one. What is it? It is... No, we're just going to live with that. Okay, then how are we going to do this? We are going to replace this with... So for flow file, let's do, basically we're just going to do string search and replace. So for want of any better syntax, we'll use something that kind of looks like. See, I could install like the mustache library and something like that, but given we are going to control the input, I think we can be fairly hacky with what we do. So we'll do flow file is, so at the moment I'm just hacking together pieces. So I've shown we can ask questions and get the responses. This next little hack is to show test flows.js. We'll do settings template. No, we won't. We'll do settings is settings template dot replace, and we are going to search for. Why did I put the dollar? I put the dollar to make it look like. But we're going to. Just to make the regexes just a little neater to read. Flow file, that's what we had. Yep. So we're going to replace that with, let's put that in quotes to begin with. Yeah. We could get into some philosophical debates as to whether this is the template of settings or the settings template or yeah. Or we could just write some code. So for now, we're just going to spit up to the console. So let's run that. Oh, and it's all spat up to the console, but if we just put that through less, then there we go, flow file. I'll actually make the window smaller so I can make it wider. Yeah, it's inserted test flows where we want it. Which is jolly decent of it. So we're going to say, we're going to ask our questions, input, flow file, and this will be response.flow file, otherwise default to flows.js. But there must be a way to set a default value on one of these prompts. So let's go look at Inquirer. If we search for default, default. Oh, there. Yes, it was there. It was initial, I think. Initial. The default value to return if the user does not supply a value. That's exactly what we want. So, well, we don't want to say what is your name, what file name. Oh, I can't think of how to ask this question. What name do you want to use for your flow file? Oh. Yeah, my grasp of English is not working for me tonight. Flows.json. Let us comment out those. Flow file. Cool. So let's see, what do we get? Oh, don't put it through less, because the interactive prompts will... there we are. So what name for the flow file? And look, it says flows.json in a nice way that can be ignored, or flows test.json. And if I scroll up through what was printed out, flows test.json. Cool. Now, because we're doing fairly naive string replace, there will need to do a bit of sanitization if they stick in what if they include quotes that will break stuff. Yeah, we need to make this pretty robust, but making it robust is not the task this instant. At the moment we're just hacking together a proof of concept. Just thinking. Yeah. Oh no, let's just crack on. Now this one wants to be a password input. Now I'm assuming this one must do a password type prompt. It sure does. What does it look like? Oh, that's good. It does asterisks. Nice. So we want password. This is going to be credential secret. Provide passphrase to encrypt your credentials file. Why not? Now, this is going to be slightly different, because if they don't provide a credential secret, you know what, I'm going to slightly change up how I'm doing this. I'm going to leave this. To be honest with you, I think the more I can leave this settings file just a carbon copy of the one in the core project, then when we want to make updates to this, it's going to be easier for us to maintain if we're not having to then go back through and add in all this markup. So what we can do instead is say just replace that with that. Not missing any quotes, have I? No, that looks good to me. Okay, so then if we go find the credential secret one, because that one by default is commented out, so we can say here if response dot credential secret, so they've provided a non-blank string, then we're going to say settings is settings, replace actually I don't need to use regular expressions at all because I'm dealing with fixed strings, which is makes life quite a bit easier. I don't have to escape all the special characters. Yeah, take that and then replace that with, again, turn this into a template string, and we want response.credential secret, and crucially get rid of the get rid of the quotes. Next boy chose the text correctly or at all. Yep, good point. Because as you can see here, I've mistyped it myself. Sure, flow file has .json extension. Okay, so that's credential secret and flow file name. Oh, that's not good. What did I muck up? So flow file name, thread.json, provide a passphrase to encrypt your credentials file. Hello secret. So scroll up through this. Oh, there's just so much. Yeah, this file is not user friendly. Okay, there's credential secret, and I typed hello world correctly. You see it's not commented out. That's goodness. And our flow file is thread.json. Good, good. Oh, just seeing, what did you say? On a side note, not enough tech. Small suggestion for the function node, can we add an option to add a selected code to the library instead of the whole node content? Snippets. No, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, we can have a think about that. Okay, so we've got the flow file name, we've got the credential secret. Ask setup admin auth. Okay. Now this is where we just want a yes/no type response, don't we? Do you want to set up security? Do we force them down the route? maybe it's is it a confirm prompt? What does that look like? Want to answer yes, no. Yeah, that's what we want. We want a type of confirm. Just call it admin auth for now. We want to set up user security. Well, that's the point next boy about, yes, we do want to force it. Which is why we will set the default to true. It's a reasonable question. Should we not ask if they want it? So that's interesting. So how that did, yeah. Sorry. Let me show you what I'm looking at. So here, do you want to set up user security? You can see that yes is the default, and then it's got a big value of true there. It doesn't look right. Oh, so no, there. Do you want to set up user security? That's going to default to false. So I do need to have initial true. What happens if is it initial y? What does that look like? True. Okay. Yeah, it's just doing basic truthiness. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was just playing around with what's the... I mean, that's using the confirm. The other option is to do it as a select with an initial value of yes. Do you want to set up user security with choices of yes, no, yeah, that feels just nicer. Plus, oh yeah. Because we could do something like recommended, or I don't know. Yeah, that does feel better, I agree. Okay. Crazy. Now, this is where we need to fork the logic. And I can see this growing quite. Yeah, at the moment we've got our initial responses. In fact, I'm going to split these up a bit. Flow file responses. So that's about the location of your flow file and the encryption of your credentials. So we fix it down here. Flow file responses. In fact, fewer lines of code is better, so let's fix that. Oh, actually, no, this, yeah, no, that's all good. Okay. So that's the initial questions. Then we're going to say const admin auth. Yeah, we'll just go with this for the moment. Prompt. So I'm already sort of well, not overthinking, I'm sort of jumping a few steps ahead in terms of actually it makes sense to pull this out into its own function, but what we'll say here is yes. If admin auth, yeah, let's call it, well, if admin auth dot admin auth equals yes, then actually no. There is, I remember when I was digging into this earlier today, the inquirer module, there is a skip option. So if true, it will not ask for that prompt. So what we really want is, can you skip based on a previous response? Let's have a look. So so here's another one. This is going to be the username. But then skip is going to be a function. And we're just going to console.log. No, we're not, because it mucks around with the prompt. So if I do a console.log from there, it's going to go crazy. Let's just assign a temp to arguments. No. Blimey. Let's just capture what arguments are being passed to the skip function and then return false because we don't want to skip it. Oh no, let's say true because we do want to skip it at this point. And then we are going to console.log temp that we captured. Okay, let's see. So init, flow file, use security. Oh. Okay, let's stop spewing out the settings file for the moment because it's not helpful filling the console. Okay, that's not, is that nice? No, that's not nice. So what I'm trying to get to is I wanted to find the skip function based on whether they said to skip it if they said no to the previous question. So I was kind of hoping like the skip function would receive an argument as sort of the accumulated responses at that point in time, but quick sniff at it doesn't look like that's the case. Let's see, JavaScript inquirer skip based on previous response. Right, is the way to do it. It is possible to pass a function to the message property that gets the answers like so. Right, but that's not the question. So message can be a function that receives the answers so far. But that's not the question that was asked. So it's also interesting that some of those were referencing inquirer with an I instead of the E of enquirer. Aha. Now, curiously, inquirer has 20 million downloads a week. Enquirer, where we were, gets 9 million downloads a week. So they're both pretty popular. Inquirer is 86 kilobytes. Enquirer is 197 kilobytes. So let's do a last minute pivot, I think. Yeah, a bit of a drag, but rather do that now before we've spent ages on it. So npm install inquirer. I assume that's what it's called. So it's dangerous just blindly running an install. Yeah, inquirer. Good. Then npm remove enquirer. Right, so now how API compatible do we think they're going to be? Okay, so yeah, I have to say, slightly different output and not quite as, didn't get as warm a feeling with it, having put all the effort in to switch over. So it doesn't prompt you with a default. This could just be different defaults. Let's see. Default, plenty of hits for default. Right, launch the prompt interface. Question array containing question object. Contains values of already answered questions. Inquirer will avoid asking answers already provided. Well, that would be quite nice if we have command line. Yeah, because one of the things will be have command line flags to set defaults. So that would be nice. So a question object, and there it is, default. So rather than initial, let's change that to default. Now what does it look like? Cool. Well, that's good. So now yeah, it's a bit better. Do you want to set up, now that was where we had the multiple choice, and it would be nice, I think it was good to have that as multiple choice. There, choices. This is choices array or a function return choices array if defined as a function, blah, blah, blah. Array values, blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. It's a separator. Oh, I see. So, do you want Oh, I had choices then. So why did that not? Maybe I've got type. Yeah, okay, so we need one of these different types. We want well, let's change it to confirm and then see, and we don't want that, we want a default yes. Flows.json, do you want to set up user security, yes or no? And you can see the yes is highlighted. Okay, I could live with that. Fred, and then we get an undefined. Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Okay, but the whole point of trying to switch over was this skip. Oh, yeah, so they don't call it skip, they call it when. But when receive the current user answer hash and should return true or false depending on whether or not this question should be asked. The value can also be a simple boolean. So this is good. So at this point we're going to return whether, well, I'm going to console.log what ops is because I'm not entirely sure what values we would have at that point. And I'll just return false for the moment. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And in fact, I'm going to, rightly or wrongly, get this back down to a single list. Now I know that I can do this branching logic in here. Type is set to select, it should be list. Oh yeah, sorry. One of my terminals keeps obscuring the chat, so I keep not seeing your messages. So let me just move that over. So what have we got? Flow file looks like that. That looks like that. Do you want to set the user security as a yes, no? There we go. So we get a boolean. And then reference error admin auth not defined, but that's fine because I left that code in by mistake. So admin auth is true. So yeah. Let's see what does it look like if I change it to list. So let's at least appreciate what it could look like. Do you want to set up user security? Yeah. So I guess it's whether, which do we think? Ooh, I left the flow file responses referencing. Do we prefer? Oh, the way it rewrites it, I can't show you two examples next to each other. So do we prefer a confirm or a list? So do you want to set up user security? It looks like that. Oh, because I already had it. So let's do that again. So user security as a list where you get to pick yes, no like that. Or do you want to set up user security where it's just a yes, no, and you have to enter in yeah, no. Yeah, no? No, I don't like that because it's not, whilst it prompts you to type in a Y or an N, there's nothing to stop the user typing in any old garbage and then it's uncertain as what they're doing. So I think picking from the list is probably a nicer option. So at this point, we only want to prompt for their username if ops.admin auth is yes. And then let's just stick a console.log of responses at the end. User security. Yes. Nick. Secret key. Okay, this is going all right. Yeah. So let's now get admin auth working. Now what we're going to do here is actually so one option would be just to generate the username and password and hardcode them in this file. There is part of me that's tempted to put the usernames and passwords in a separate file and just require that file from this one, so that it's in part easier for the user to maintain. But there is a kicking around the idea of having better user management within the editor itself. And for that to work, it needs to be able to update your password in wherever it's stored, which it can't do in the settings file because it can't modify the settings file. But if they were in a well-defined second file, like .env, but not quite .env in this instance, then yeah, that would be an option. This is where I'm not going to get too embroiled in this stuff because this needs some proper design work, and to be honest, I'm already running over a bit. So yeah, what we're going to do for the moment is say if responses.adminauth is yes, then what we want to do is settings, and now I'm going to fall back to a regular expression because that's just how I prefer to roll. Adminauth blah dot star greedily until we find that. So I think if I've got that right, that will match that whole block. And we're going to replace that with admin auth open bracket, and then we need to get the indent right so it all matches up. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, type credentials users username responses dot username, so insert that there. password is password, and we'll come back to that in a minute because I've got to do the work to hash it first, and then set permissions up to be a full-on user. Then get my indent right again. I think that's the right level. Put that bit back. I think that should do it. But what we haven't got is that password equal. Now, handily, one of our other commands as part of Node-RED admin is the code to hash a password. So that's interesting. We already used the prompt module in Node-RED admin. I think part of this will... That's interesting, actually. Does prompt... No. No, sorry. Prompt... Okay, I used the read module just as a... Oh, ignore me, I'm tired. Grab that. The reason we do this little try-catch block is bcrypt is the binary bcrypt module that doesn't compile everywhere. So yeah, we fall back. We try to require it if it's there because it installed, great. If not, we fall back to the slower JavaScript version. Not enough tech. Well, no worries. Thank you for joining. As I say, every Monday, you're all more than welcome. I mean, I'm going to be wrapping up fairly soon. I just want to get enough of this to prove the concept, and then it's easier then to iterate more quickly once you've got the basic framework of something working. So we're going to do the bcrypt sync of responses.password. Good. And then let's spit out. So init, name flow file, flows.json, a secret there. Do you want to set up user security? Yes. Username Nick. Password. Okay, now let's scroll up slowly. There's admin auth, and it has failed to... It hasn't done the substitution of admin auth, so there's something wrong with my regular expression matching that, which is a pain. Yeah. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm going to wrap. I'm knackered. It's the honest answer. What is wrong with that regular expression? Greedy match into everything and then... Does it not like going over multiple lines? Okay, one more attempt. Just add the global flag to that and then let's see. No, still hasn't done it. So, is it even trying? Yeah, see, having said I'm stopping, I'm now kind of like, oh, but I just want to see this bit working, and then I can stop. Happy. Okay, so it is getting in here. It's doing the password crypting, which is fine. Yeah, so there's just some issue with my regular expression. It's not working. So that's a drag. And doing it via regular expressions this is all fairly fragile to future changes, but right. 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes, I promise. We are just going to very quickly do read file sync of commands init resources settings.js. Nope, missed it. Okay. Try that again with lib at the front. Yeah, you got it. Okay, so that's the content. Now let's try a regular expression again. Test content false. Okay. So it's not matching it for some reason. Okay, let's build this up from the start. Okay, it's finding admin auth, which is good. You'd expect that. It's finding a commented out admin auth. Ooh, that's good. It's finding it with the semicolon. That's good. With an opening brace, then all sorts of content, greedily. Okay, so it's as soon as I do that, it is not working. Is that because that doesn't match white space, like new line? There we go. Yeah, dot by itself doesn't match new lines. Bloody regular expressions. So let's try that one last time. Blah, blah. JSON secret. Yes, user security. Nick. And a big blah. And of course, I commented out the thing that would give us the actual answer at the end. So, blah, blah, yes, blah, blah, and scroll up. Let's see, except it hasn't, didn't work. That's a pain. Right, let's just fire this up again. Oh, okay, it's getting false this time. So why was I getting it true before? I'm sure I saw that evaluating to true just now. Okay, what? Big S, little s. Basically everything that is a space and everything that isn't a space. Try that. Yay! Boom, it's in. Although the indent's off, I need to pull it back. Need to pull all this back 4. Just like that. Okay. Well, that's working. Plenty still to do, but you get the idea. Yeah, it does absolutely make me want to completely burn our default settings file and find a better way to structure it, but that's not for now. Cool. Well, thanks for sticking around, guys. I hope that was interesting. Whether this is in, well, this will get into 2.0, whether it's in the initial beta, I doubt it, because I'm not going to burn a lot of time getting this going in the next couple of days when we want to get the beta out this week. And the whole point of a beta is we can refresh it as many times as we want before a final release. So that's the plan. Excellent. Yeah, that's an hour and a half. I think long overdue time for me to say thanks for joining. Do like, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Do follow me if you're on Twitch. More of the same next week. And hopefully we'll have the beta out by next week. And you guys will get to play with more of the flow debugger and the flow linter. And we'll be working on all the feedback hopefully the beta generates. But we'll see. So, stay safe. Stay happy, and see you again next time. Cheers all. Bye.